Hi, I'm Alan Altshuld. You may remember me as Plummet. No, let me start that again. Hi, I'm Alan Altshuld. You may remember me from, I do that again, one more time. Hi, I'm Alan Altshuld. You may remember me as Plummet and Uranic from The Next Generation, and the Takarian Sandalmaker and Loomis from Voyager. You're listening to Trek Untold.
Welcome to Trek Untold, the Star Trek podcast that goes beyond the stars. I'm your host, Matthew Kaplowitz. Our guest this week is someone whose face you've seen a lot over the last few decades on television, but you might not be able to figure out why. If you search for his name on IMDb, you would be disappointed to discover how slim it is. But the reality is that those TV credits are not where his body of work lies. This week, we're talking to Alan Altshuld, a performer who spent a good chunk of his career in commercials and on stage. His memorable face and penchant for high-pitched screaming has landed him a ton of gigs for commercials you have definitely seen across this nation, but he's also very much a fine, skilled actor who has spent a lot of time in theaters throughout America, doing some shows that we're going to talk about today, and one of which does have a Star Trek connection. And speaking of Star Trek, you've seen Alan 4 times in this franchise, twice on The Next Generation and twice on Voyager. You would have seen him first as Pommet on the episode Starship Mine, and Uranic on the Gambit Part 1 in TNG, both times wearing a ton of makeup. And later, he was a Takarian Sandalmaker in the Voyager episode False Prophets, this time without any of the makeup, but hey, they made up for it in his last Star Trek appearance, which was as the Catati alien named Loomis from the episode Day of Honor. And boy, did he have a lot of makeup in that one. I'm proud to say that Alan hasn't actually done a lot of interviews, and even less so, talked about his experiences on the sets of Star Trek. So when I call this show Trek Untold today, this is one of those episodes where it's very much the truth. We uncovered some never-heard-before stories about Star Trek here, and there's a few fun surprises along the way in this interview that I don't want to spoil for you, so stick around. Oh, and by the way, as it also turns out, Alan auditioned for a major role on Voyager, and he actually got pretty far along in the audition process with it. But you're going to have to stick around to see who he almost was on board that Intrepid-class ship. So stick around and maybe grab yourself some Little Caesars pizza, you'll find out why in a little bit, and get ready to meet the one and only Alan Altshuld. But before we begin this week's episode, I want to remind you to follow Trek Untold on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Trek Untold, all one word. You can get show updates, check out some fun memes, and let me know what you think about what's going on with the current events in the Star Trek universe. You can also support this show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/TrekUntold, where you can support this show for as little as $2 a month. At higher tiers, you can listen to the shows before they come out, know about my guests well in advance, and even have a chance to ask them questions, get transcripts of these episodes to make sure you get all the info, and more benefits coming soon, including watch parties and live streams. But that's all dependent on more fans like you coming over and letting me know you want to be a part of events like that. If you want some Trek Untold merchandise, check out our store for gear and apparel, including shirts, hats, stickers, water bottles, notebooks, and a whole lot more. New designs will be added throughout the year, so it's always worth taking a peek. Trek Untold also has an Amazon shop where you can peruse everything Star Trek, sci-fi, and geeky on Amazon in one convenient location. If you're looking for a gift for the Trekkie in your life, or maybe want to see some of my favorite non-Star Trek things that you can get for yourself, check out the link for my Amazon shop in the show notes on the audio version and in the description below this video on YouTube. If you're listening to us on iTunes or any other audio platforms that allow for ratings and reviews, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review to help out this show. If you're watching it on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to us at youtube.com/TrekUntold and give the video a thumbs up and a comment. All of these things help more people find this show and to continue growing and bringing you awesome guests each and every week. Now, without further ado, let's beam in this week's guest. Computer, access interview file. And welcome back to Trek Untold, and now joining us on the other side of the screen, we have Mr. Alan Altshuld today with us. Alan, how's it going?
Going well, thank you. Good to be here.
It's really cool to have you here because I don't think you've done a lot of these interviews before, and I feel honestly
I,
pretty honored to actually get you here because you've had quite a career.
well, it's been long and it's had its ups and downs, but it's still going. I'm still doing. I've had, as I said, peaks and valleys, and now I'm getting to the point where I took a hiatus. I was doing other things, and now I'm ready to get back into it.
I don't know. I'm very excited to kind of run down the career path, the career journey of Alan Altshuld today, which of course
Okay,
ties into Star Trek, and that's where we're
sure.
gonna kind of kick this off a little bit. And I'd like to ask you, Alan, what's your earliest memory of Star Trek? Did you grow up watching it as a kid?
I watched it. I watched some of it. I don't know. I don't think I watched it a lot, um, but I was aware of it, and I did watch it occasionally. And I think I didn't really pay much attention to it until I was in a theater company in Los Angeles, and two of the members were. One of them was Judy Levitt. The other one was her husband, Walter Koenig, and they are now longtime friends of mine. And so that's when I had my close encounter with Star Trek. So
Well, I got to press you right there because
okay,
I got to ask you about that working with Walter Koenig and his wife. So tell me a little bit about it. What was the show you guys worked on together?
well, we were in a theater company together, and so and Walter wasn't doing any plays at that time. He was helping to produce, and I actually produced a play that he directed
Ah,
many years ago. I can't remember what the name of it was, but his wife and I did. We did traveling shows with a troupe called the LA Troupe, and we did shortened versions of classical plays that fit into a class period. So the students had studied the whatever play we were going to do, and Judy and I did several plays together.
that's really cool. I actually had Walter on this show some time ago, in fact,
Oh,
and
great!
we talked a little bit about some theater work also because he did actually a show with Mark Lenard. He did Waiting for Godot. Mark Lenard, well, I believe it was
Right.
Waiting for Godot, and
Uh,
I always feel like Walter is such like an actor's actor, but because of
yes,
what happened on Star Trek and just I guess getting typecast and his relationship with the sci-fi world and coming to terms with what he was
exactly.
in that world, he really
Sure.
never got the chance to like really flex his muscles the way he deserved to.
No, no, it was a wonderful man. In fact, back on the shelf here, I have his book right there, Work Factors, right there, which I enjoy because you think you know somebody and then you read their autobiography and you learn a whole lot more.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that, so I'm glad we got to right off the bat we got to learn that little Star Trek connection. That's really awesome.
Right, right, right.
So, all right, Alan, let's dig a little into the past now of your journey, and let's
Okay.
talk about your secret origin story. So,
Oh,
can you tell us where you were born, who your parents were, and what they did, and what little Alan wanted to be when he grew up?
oh my goodness. Uh, my I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and grew up in the eastern suburb of Mayfield Heights. And my dad was in the restaurant business. He was mostly a deli man,
Ah,
and so we always had good corned beef and pastrami and all that. And so I
this
grew up
is a
with
kosher
great
deli in Cleveland, Ohio.
yes,
Wow,
yes. It wasn't kosher, but kosher style.
kosher style, yeah.
Uh, um, and he shared the space with a bakery, which was my favorite. It's like this, the smell of fresh bread and fresh pastries. And I used to get, as a kid, just remember staring at the cases and all these desserts, just sugar laden and salivating. And I used to get taste of everything. It was a great experience. And my mom was, she was a mother mostly. She was a housewife, but then she went on to work in retail. Uh, she loved she loved people. She loved selling clothes. So she sold women's clothing for many years. My parents, the year that I graduated college was the year my sister graduated high school, 1976, and they moved. They left after having been born and raised, both of them in Cleveland, Ohio. They moved to California. I think they thought they were done with the winters, the snow. They just had it. And my brother was already off and exploring the West. So we all wound up on the same side of the country, which is kind of what they wanted. And I studied, well, what did I want to do? Back to your question. I was writing and producing plays as a kid. We did them in the backyard. Um, we did them in someone's garage, and we had concessions. We would sell candy and popcorn and all that stuff. But I always wanted to be an actor. I mean, I thought I wanted to be a concert pianist, but I gave that up because it was just too limiting to be sitting at a keyboard for the rest of my life. But I played the head munchkin in The Wizard of Oz in kindergarten, and that's when the bug bit. So the rest
Star
is
is born on the Yellow Brick Road.
right. And I went on, high school. I was the quintessential guy who got all the big roles in high school, playing old men. It wasn't until I got much older that I started playing younger men. So
go figure.
And now I've grown into my old age. In fact, I have an audition this afternoon that I self-taping. I'm playing grandpas now. So
I was gonna say, I thought you were playing 20-year-olds now.
No, I did that. I had to play someone younger than myself in a play, and I dyed my hair because they're just starting to get gray at the time. So that was the first time I played younger.
Now, did you go to school for performing arts once you got through with high school?
I did. I after high school, I went to Ohio University, which at the time was a member of the professional actor training programs, which were, I'm not sure if they exist anymore, but had an amazing professor there, Bob Hobbs, and it was very intense. I unfortunately only got to work with him for a year because he transferred to Washington University the University of Washington in Seattle, and it was too far for me to leave Ohio. But I got amazing training there, doing everything. It was very intense. We did all kinds of tap, ballet, modern dance. We had fencing, dialects, voice work, singing. There was nothing that was left. And on our holidays, we were expected to go to New York to learn how to function in the city, how to ride the subways, how to audition in the city. Not that we were going to get jobs, but just to ready us for. So a lot of training is just the acting work, but this was also practical, how to live as an actor.
I think that's really fascinating because, like I went to art school, I did the art school experience, and I kind of know, one of my things was there wasn't really a lot of that practical stuff. We had like one or two teachers in my senior year that were telling us things, and some of them were useful. Like one teacher told us really great things about how to be professional. The other one kind of inflated our heads with nonsense. Like, right off the bat, you can charge this much money for a gig. And I'm like, I've still never charged that much money for a gig. So it's really cool that you actually got like real world experience as part of that.
Yeah, the first day of class was something he called the New York audition. So it was going to be, it was the worst experience. It would be the worst experience of your life. So it was just preparing us for what the world, or it would be the best experience. 3 people within the first month quit the class, and I think they were all grad students. There were undergrads and grads in that class, and he was tough. But I learned so much. I mean, I remember just as if it were yesterday, these auditions where he asked me to do a monologue from a play that I had done that year in college. And as in the middle of the monologue, he stopped me and started reading off all the dialects I had written down on my resume. And he wanted me to change the dialects every time he said British, Spanish, Israeli. He would just yell them out and just to see if he could, rile me or just get me messed up. And he did. But I just went with the flow. And one time he said, "Do you have legs?" I said, "What?" I said, "Let's see your legs." So I had to roll up my pants, and he said, "Okay, continue the monologue." And I started to unroll the pants. He said, "I didn't say to roll them down, put them back up." So he had me do this monologue, changing the dialects every other line with my one pant leg rolled up. So it was an experience I've never forgotten. So, but I did learn how to act too.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's one part acting, one part improv, and also one part just learning how to survive, literally, and to cope.
Right, and he was not himself. He was playing a role. He was playing a role of this jerk director. He chose one person in the class, and this beautiful woman who's still in theater, and he looked at her and said, you don't have to do anything. You don't need to audition. You're exactly what we're looking for. And she really wanted to do her monologue. She wanted to audition. No, 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 no. It's fine. It's fine. You are perfect for this. And he just went overboard. So, and then some of the people just got the worst of him, and she got the best. And she was very frustrated by it.
So is it fair to say that most of your career has been in theater more so than on TV and on film?
Well, let's say lots of theater, a lot of commercials. I mean,
Okay.
I've made a good deal of my income from commercials, and I'm still making money from commercials. So it's a good. I've had the same agents since 1988, and
That's an
that's
accomplishment in and of
pretty
itself.
pretty amazing. And they still support me, and hopefully I'm supporting them. But yeah, it's a fun experience to create a character within the span of 30 seconds, say, or a minute. I've had a lot of good experience. I've worked with some amazing people, some amazing directors who went on to direct films. So
You're going to help me out a little bit here because when I check filmography on IMDb, it usually only has TV and film and sometimes video games, things like that. But for things like commercials, I don't even know where to look. So I'd love it if you can kind of fill me in a little bit, like some of the stuff you did, maybe some things we might recognize you from.
oh my goodness. Well, I think the last one I shot was actually when things started opening up after COVID. It was a big production. It was an AT&T commercial. I think it had something to do with uh, all of the workers, people who were out on the line doing their jobs during
Yeah,
COVID.
all the
And I
essential
played,
workers.
right, and I played a lineman. I was lifted up in this bucket, and it was shot in an old classic movie theater downtown LA, and it never aired. I mean, they spent millions. They had to for this experience, and I never saw footage of it. Never saw anything. But the one before that was the Super Bowl commercial for Stella Artois with Jeff Bridges and Sarah Jessica Parker, and I played the piano in it. So my music background served me well. And although I'm actually not playing the piano in the commercial, in the background, and so I did well on that commercial. It paid well. My first big commercial was soon after I got to LA. Was for Little Caesars Pizza. I had something about me just elicits people casting me in roles where I have to scream at the top of my lungs, and this was a Little Caesars Pizza commercial where it was called the Vegetarian Society. You probably could find it on YouTube. And there's a room of these hippie-like people. Vegetarians were incensed by this commercial. They wrote nasty letters to Little Caesar because they're selling their all-meat pizza. So I'm just strumming on a guitar. My hair was very long at the time, and this pizza comes moving into the door. So for some people, 5 different kinds of meat on a pizza is their wish come true. For others, their worst nightmare, and the door opens on an office where it says Vegetarian Society. The door opens, and we all scream at the top of our lungs. And I throw the guitar off into the other side of the room, and that was it. And that was my first taste of a national commercial. People recognizing me on the street, and also lots of money coming in the mail. I was out here from New York because I was living in New York and was subletting my apartment, not knowing whether I was going to move out here. And I was living with my parents at the time, and my dad got a kick out of these fat envelopes coming with all the residuals. And in those days, you could make big bucks. Nowadays, it's not so much. Everything has been splintered into new media and so on. So it was good. It was fun, and then I said, okay, I'm staying, and my commercial career kind of took off.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, because we talked about a little bit of your upbringing, and I see there's a menorah in the background also that you have there. And you mentioned like a lot of the roles have been, certain type where it's you screaming or whatever. And I wonder like how much of that plays into like perhaps a Jewish stereotype of like the Nebbish or the Schmender kind of character that's usually
Oh
portrayed.
well,
Is that the thing you feel like you faced?
I think that probably. I mean, the character, and I know it's going to come up in Baywatch. Is another scene where we're in the cave and I scream at the top of my lungs. And one of my demo reels, was a series of me screaming at the top of my lungs.
It's not a sizzle reel; it's a scream reel.
Yes. So yeah, I think there's obviously Hollywood sometimes lacks imagination, so they want to they hire you for what you look like, obviously, and I don't care. I did actually after I did do a movie with before I came out here with Woody Allen, and I had several lines in it that were eventually cut, and which I didn't know about. I remember watching this when it first Radio Days first came out. I was watching because I knew when the scene was going to happen, and I saw myself on the left side of the screen from the audience, walking across, and then it was cut. The lines that I had were no longer in. Woody Allen often writes and shoots lots of stuff, and then he edits down, and he became the narrator. So the lines that I had were going to introduce the next scene, and there was a great physical comedy bit that we had, throwing things and hitting people, and all gone. I never saw it, never will. But that was after I did my first movie when I had a speaking line, which was The Money Pit.
Yeah, let's talk about The Money Pit, in fact, 'cause that's with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long, and your scene is, in fact, with Tom Hanks. You're the Volkswagen Beetle that's covered in lights. You're the driver of that car.
Yes. I was a nervous wreck, I have to say. I auditioned for Richard Benjamin, the director, and I was nervous with that, but it was one line. I said, they testing missiles here or what? And it was a running joke throughout the film. Not particularly successful, but shooting with Tom was very calming for me. He was very grounded and friendly, and he has his Cleveland experience where he worked at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. So he shared with me the story about how and I'm sure he's talked about it in interviews, about how he grew up as an actor in Cleveland on the stage there doing Shakespeare. So, but I was a wreck because I had to drive this vehicle, stick shift, which I was not very good at, and I had to come around the corner, and I couldn't see because the lights were off. They didn't want the lights showing into the camera. It was Gordon Willis behind the camera, which was amazing, and Richard Benjamin on the walkie-talkie telling me what to do, when to do it, and we had some false starts, and it was difficult. But Tom, really, he helped me through that whole thing. I can't thank him enough.
I mean, it seemed like a rough shoot just based on the fact that it's nighttime, you can't see anything. I mean, it's pretty apparent that you really can't see anything.
And the lights are shooting right directly in my face. So
yeah,
and it's the first big movie. I mean,
it's not just that it's intimidating; it's also the fact that you were just literally covered in lights. Plus, let's not forget there's glare probably from your Volkswagen Beetle with all the bulbs on it.
And not only that actually wasn't so bad. The generator for the lights was in the back seat, and so it was making so much noise I couldn't even think. And they did it in 2 shots anyhow. So we drove up the driveway, and then they cut, and then we shot the scene where Tom gets out of the car, and I say the line, "They testing missiles here or what?" So, and not many people know this, but I knew it the second I saw the film, because it's an outdoor shoot. It's at night. There's noise. It was looped. Somebody else looped my line. So my first line in the movie was actually not me speaking. I mean, my mouth is moving, and they did a good job of doing it, but it wasn't me. I still get residuals. I think I gross about $15 a year now still. So from Universal, which is right down the street from here.
Well, for all our audience people that are listening right now, go ahead and go rent or buy on Amazon or wherever. Go ahead and get The Money Pit, and let's get that up to $20 this year. How about that?
All over the world, yes. But, yeah, anyhow.
Now, you already mentioned also that you did an episode of Baywatch, which has the incredibly long title of K-Gas, the Grooveyard of Solid Gold. And you were Basil Frankakos, or
Frankenkos. Nobody knew how to pronounce the name, and so I just said, "Okay, this is my character. This is how we're going to say the name." And for the audition, they wanted some funny dialect, and I came up with this pseudo Eastern European thing that they all laughed at, and so that people who auditioned for it had to apparently. Uh, uh, I have to tell you that a high school friend of mine was a producer and writer on the show, and he called me in for the audition, but did not tell any of the producers that he knew me. So I got it on my own, fair and square. But I remember talking. I can't. The dialect was. I can't do it right now. It'll come to me. But I remember it was a fun shoot because we got to work on a different beach every day. So all up down the coast from Santa Monica all the way up to Leo Carrillo, which is right on the border of Ventura County. So it was beautiful and fun. It was a lot of laughs.
And I'm quite jealous that you got to be tied up with Pamela Anderson. I mean, that's a story.
Pamela Anderson and David Charvet. He was there too.
He's not as important, but yeah, go ahead.
And the three of us, they were setting up lights, so they were waiting for the lights to shift. We were in this cave, so we had a lot of time to kill. So I don't know who started it, but we started singing Motown songs. So the three of us were just kind of rocking out and singing, and we had a great time. She was fun to work with, and so was the Hoff. It was a lot of fun too. We had some laughs during our scene, so it was fun. I enjoyed. I think I've enjoyed everything I've done so far. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Trek Untold will return momentarily.
Trek Untold is sponsored by Triple Fiction Productions. Celebrating 15 years in business in 2023, TFP creates 3D printed Star Trek and sci-fi inspired items that fit into any collection. Whether you're a cosplayer who wants a Starfleet phaser, a Bajoran tricorder, or a Klingon dagger, or a toy collector looking for that special accessory or diorama to make your figures truly stand out, Triple Fiction Productions has exactly what you need. And for you figure fanatics, that includes products that are the perfect size for Galoob, Mego, Playmates, and everything in between. All products are 3D printed in the US, with new designs constantly being updated on their website. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, which is a great way to save money as you build your collection. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, which is a great way to save money as you build your collection. Repeat customers can sign up for TFP's loyalty program for free, where the more you order, the more discounts you receive. TFP also has a pay what you want section, where clearance or misprinted items are available at a discounted price. Best of all, every product can be shipped worldwide. As a special bonus for listeners of this show, Trek Untold has a special discount code just for you. Enter Untold10 at checkout for 10% off of all orders with no minimum purchase required. That's 10% off using Untold10. To see all of their products, head to triple-fictionproductions.net. Or to stay up to date on their newest products, find them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Triple Fiction Productions, where something is only impossible until it happens.
Hi, I'm Braden.
And I'm Connie.
We're the hosts of the fun-filled food podcast, Epicurean Unicorn.
On Epicurean Unicorn, we converse with food industry professionals.
Connie, aren't we food industry professionals?
That is what we tell people. Okay, all kidding aside, on Epicurean Unicorn, we bring our combined 40 years of food industry experience directly to you through conversations with other industry professionals.
We focus on bringing you inspiring stories and current topics that are affecting the foods you enjoy every day. Plus, there's a lot of fun banter.
Only on the episodes without you, Braden.
Hey! If you've ever wondered how to make the best banana sandwich, or if there is a library dedicated to sourdough,
spoiler, there is.
Or what the future of sustainability in the food industry looks like,
then this is the podcast for you.
Do both your ear holes and your pie hole a favor and check out Epicurean Unicorn, a podcast for food lovers from food industry professionals.
You can find and subscribe to Epicurean Unicorn on all major podcast platforms. You can also check out our crazy work adventures on all social media by searching at Parados US.
Nailed it.
Braden, that's a different show we aren't affiliated with.
But Jacques Therese was on episode 3. Check it out on all major podcast platforms.
Well, anyway.
Epicurean Unicorn, a magical adventure for foodies everywhere. Listen anywhere quality podcasts are found.
Bye.
That's not how we sign off.
Bye.
Be seeing you.
Bye. Bye. Goodbye.
All right, well, Alan, let's beam into our Star Trek discussion, and we have
Okay.
4 appearances to talk about here in the franchise. So let's begin with the very first one, which is from the 6th season TNG episode Starship Mine, written by Morgan Gendel. He also wrote the very famous Inner Light episode. So talk to us about how you got cast for the role of Pommet, the very interesting, curious-looking alien.
Yes, actors sometimes need other jobs to pay the rent. My other job at the time was working retail in a children's clothing store. The owner of the store's husband was a tennis pro, and one of his students was Jeri Taylor. So Jeri Taylor, one of the producers of Star Trek, and we met, and I told her that I was an actor, and I already knew that she was a producer and writer on Star Trek. And she says, "Well, give me your picture and resume, and I'll keep you in mind, and we'll have you come in." And people say that in Hollywood a lot, but she actually did call me in, and I got it. It was a great experience and fun. I mean, how much fun to be running around the Enterprise with dressed in these funky suits. I don't know if you want to see this now.
We'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. But it was so much fun working with all those people. Some people who later went on to bigger roles in the Star Trek universe. Patricia Tallman was fun. I have, and I wish I had pulled them out, but some photos that we took on the set, just hanging out, having fun. And I can't remember the other fellow's name. Anyhow, it'll come to me. But it just was, it was so much fun. And to get the whole scene where I got shot in the leg with a crossbow by Picard was, although I didn't work with him because it was done in separate shots. There's a side story here. Paramount every once in a while they do auction off their costumes. And I received a fan letter from a fan in Arizona, I believe it was. There were 2 costumes. There was the costume, the hero costume, and then there was the stunt costume. Because they had to cut a hole in the leg where they would attach the arrow because it was screwed into my leg. And so this gentleman had purchased both of those costumes and put them on mannequins in his home office. He said he wanted my picture and my autograph, and I sent it to him because I thought, why not? So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that is really fun, and also the fact that you're basically an internet meme. There was the old Skyrim meme of, I used to be a guardsman until I took an arrow to the knee. You
Right.
used to be a starship terrorist until you took a crossbow to the knee.
Right, but how much fun? I mean, how often? I mean, I don't know. It wasn't the arrow who killed me. That was because I believe that nobody dies.
Yeah, I think you were just paralyzed due to some poison on it.
Right,
Yeah.
and until the Barian sweep came through.
Yeah.
I can't believe I remember that. And that's what got me. But how much fun to essentially play dead.
Yeah.
That stuck in the leg with that, and some of my movement training from college came in handy, and to fall and perish. So, but it was fun, just crawling all over, up and down the ladders, and it was. I could have asked for anything more. It's great.
Now, you already alluded to this a few moments ago. In fact, you have something, and so let's talk about that. So you got to be an alien, so you got to have, of course, the alien makeup. You got to get all specially made and everything like that.
Right.
So talk to us about this makeup and what that process was like every day.
Of all the makeup jobs that I worked on Star Trek, this took the longest because it was a partial prosthetic, and they had to blend it into my skin because the camera picks up everything. So it took the first day because they were just figuring it out. This is after they've done a life mask of me and created this, which I still have, this partial prosthetic with the suction cups. But it took 5 hours the first day.
Wow.
And it took a good hour and a half just to remove it because they were going to reuse it. I can't remember if this is the one we used all week long or not. It may be that there was a backup, but I think this might have, because they had no use for it, which is why I have it now, because it was done. Anyhow, this is the prosthetic piece, and I can put it on my face here, and that's how it fit. And they blended all of that in, and I had these green extensions that were put into my hair, and then the chin piece. I do this, and I do this. That was me, the old tentacle face.
That's amazing.
So that was fun. But again, I remember the makeup people. Again, I'm getting to work with Michael Westmore. I mean, he's legendary. His family is legendary in Hollywood. And the artists that worked on that show and on me were amazing. And they kept saying, "You're so patient. You're just sitting so quietly for 5 hours." I said, "I'm making a lot of money doing this, and I'm having a great time. So I'm going to complain? No, I'm not going to complain."
I'm shocked to hear that was actually a 5-hour makeup job, 5.5 hours. That's deceptively complex.
Well, yeah, and they obviously had to get it down, because they've got producers looking at the clock and knowing that I needed to be on set by a certain time.
Yeah.
So, and it was great to my first big guest star on a show. So that was a big deal.
Now, I had read that Michael Westmore said the makeup was originally supposed to be a fuller face treatment. Would have been even more makeup on your face. Do you remember doing any test makeup or anything like that, or knowing about that beforehand?
No, for this character.
Yeah, for this character, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, they probably. I mean, because the two other aliens I played were all complete prosthetic, just over the head masks, which were easier to do. Harder as an actor to function. But I also, one of the things that I studied in college was mask work. So I was able to use my body and I knew how to emphasize the parts of my prosthetic that would move. So I think that helped.
Now, we already mentioned Patricia Tallman, who, by the way, she's also been a guest on this podcast. So anybody who hasn't heard the episode, go back and check it out. It's really good.
I've already seen it. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So it's Alan Altshuld approved. So make sure you check it out too if you're listening.
Please do. Yes.
And that episode also has Tim Russ went on to be Tuvok. You got Glenn Morshower, who was a Trek regular.
That's the name I forgot. And Tim Desarn, I don't know if he played in any of the other episodes. Yeah, he was the other one.
Yeah, so it's a fun cast, and we did mention Patrick Stewart is there too. He wasn't shooting you with the crossbow, but
right.
I believe you still did get to do a little bit of work with him, right? I mean, did you get to hang out with him at all offset? I mean, how was he?
To the side, and I mean, just he's an actor. He's a guy. Yeah. We're all working together, and there were no errors. There were he was all of the guest stars were terrific to work with. They really were very supportive, and I worked on shows where that hasn't been the case, because you're a guest star, you're coming, you're working this week, and then you're gone, and they want to work with the people they know. Or they don't want to work off camera if you have a scene together. I won't name names, but
I think one of the cool things too about this, and I would imagine a cool experience for you, is the fact that this entire episode is more or less happening with Picard versus the terrorists on the empty Enterprise. So you're getting to walk around this amazing set, and you're basically having carte blanche, because there's not really that many people there, not really that many other actors in that case.
Right.
So I guess let's take a step backwards for a minute and just say, first time you saw this set, what was that like? Was it anything like you'd seen before?
I just got goosebumps thinking about it, because because here's this iconic universe that I've seen on television, and we're in it. Yeah. We are characters in this. So I think I said earlier, it was like being a kid, just playing on this big toy, and it was just so much fun to be able to do what we did and to play a bad guy too. So.
Now, you returned to TNG one season later in the episode Gambit, first part of Gambit, that is, as an alien named Uranic. Now, that must have been a busy day in the makeup chair, just not based on how long it would take, but just the fact that there were so many other folks that day doing a lot of makeup. So, again, let's go back to this makeup process. And you mentioned already that Pommet was pretty long, but how arduous was this one? Was this one?
This was not arduous.
Really, not at all?
Because, the hair is, they probably spent more time on the hair than they did on the mask. And there's so much, I mean, the important part of that character, I think, because you're wearing a mask, is in the eyes. Um, so it didn't take that long. It was pretty quick, which I think, again, the producers were all for that. It takes much less time to do that. They just have to blend in the area around the eyes and the mouth, because Uronic spoke a lot. So so there was a lot of touch-ups going on. The glue, this is glued to my lips, so that's going to affect the way I speak. And again, the mask training helped. I remember that they had these press-on nails, and I had to eat in that first scene. So I had to pick up the food, and I was afraid that the nail was going to, because I'd never had anything like that on my fingers. But they did the most amazing airbrush job on my fingernails. So they kind of scraped them up to make it kind of gross, and I had to pick up that food and kind of enjoy it. That Uranic was my favorite of all of my characters that I played, and part of that was it was great working with Jonathan Frakes. I mean, he was so, I mean, he just knows what he's doing. He knows how to add to a scene, and he lifted. I mean, the scene was good to start with, I think, but he made it better. He made me better. So it was a great experience. And eating food is also a problem, because you're eating these funky little things. They're supposed to be food from the future, freeze dried, whatever they were, and with these nails, and then talking and eating, and you can't really eat a lot because you have to say all these lines. But somehow I got through it.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the scene, by the way, and I did notice how gently you did pick up that food. But I'm curious to. I'm trying to figure out what that food actually was. I don't even know if you're going to remember that little tidbit of information.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they sell them at. They're like freeze-dried Japanese things, like peas, and it look. I mean, they're a healthier version of it, like a Cheese Whiz or something. Not Cheese Whiz. Not even Cheez-Its, but Cheetos. That's what it is.
Okay.
But smaller. Everything was very delicate, and but they were kind of crunchy, so that made it more difficult to eat. Worrying about, you have to think of 15,000 things at once. About your voice, about the mask, about the nails, about the other actor, about the director, about the camera, the lighting, and so on. So it's hopefully none of that shows. Hopefully it just a character comes through. So.
I mean, to me, I like to pay attention to these things, because I was looking at it, I was like thinking it's like bagel chips with green beans with sour cream or something. But it's really fascinating, like how sci-fi food is basically just normal everyday food, but they just do different things or juxtapose it next to other foods you wouldn't put it next to, and suddenly it's space food.
Right, sure.
So yeah, we already mentioned Jonathan Frakes, who also gets to shove you around a little bit in that scene where you had your little snack, which is fun.
Yeah, that wasn't. I don't think that was originally in the script. I think we added that, and we had to work on the fight so that he wouldn't break my back, because he's a big guy, But we worked it so that my back would be in such a way that it hit the softest part of my back against the wall, and that scene was just very powerful for me as an actor. There was no acting involved. It was just reacting. It was doing what was natural to the scene.
That's kind of like one of the biggest things we hear a lot on this show in particular when it comes to actors is reacting versus just reading lines. And, for it to be realistic, you do have to react. And I feel like in the theater world, you can react in a different way, because you're also feeding off of the emotions of the audience, what's going on that day, what's going on in your day what's going on in your life, rather, on that particular day. Whereas TV, it's pretty much, you have 30 minutes, let's get this shot, we got more stuff to do. So, is that a challenge for you, for someone who has done a lot of theater work?
No, it wasn't. It's an adjustment. I mean, in the theater, you have to project. I just did a play in December, and I had to adjust because I've been working so small for so long that, and I remembered how to do it back from high school, that I had to project to the back of the auditorium or suffer the wrath of my director, who was my mentor in high school, who put me on the path. Really, he helped me decide to be an actor. So, yeah.
I do want to point out too, the scene you have before being pushed around by Frakes is also one that didn't have Patrick Stewart this time around, but you did have Michael Dorn, Marina Sirtis, and Gates McFadden all in the same scene with you, which is does make for a really fun scene. The fact that you've got all these folks together, also incognito, playing
Right.
a bunch of, yeah, it's a really good scene. I do like that one. How did you enjoy working with those folks too?
Everybody, they couldn't have been nicer and more supportive. It was so easy. There were no nerves. You just, it just happened organically, and they were just easy and fun to work with.
Now, after your time on the Enterprise, Alan, you transferred over to Voyager, and we
Yes.
first saw you in the season 3 episode "False Prophets" as a Takarian sandal maker.
Poor
This
guy.
time, no crazy makeup, right? But
Yeah.
also no time on a starship, so a little bit of a different experience. How was that for you?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun working without a mask. I mean, the good thing about working with a mask is that they can bring you back because
Yes.
they don't recognize you from other characters. And so I thought maybe this would be my last time just because of seeing my face, although it wasn't. Um, this was the nebbish guy that you were talking about, the poor sandal maker. But again, I had great fun working on all of them, working with the Ferengis, working with Leslie Jordan, right?
Yeah, Leslie Jordan and Dan Shore were the
Yeah.
two Ferengis.
Right. And so it was another great experience. And again, Jeri Taylor facilitated all the, Jeri Taylor along with Junie Lowry Johnson, the
Yeah,
casting
Junior Lowry
director.
Johnson. Yep.
So she brought me in for several things.
And let's not forget too Rob LaBelle. He was also the Takarian assistant for the Ferengis as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's chat about your scene a little bit here with the two Ferengis, because you're basically on your knees, crawling up these steps, saying your lines. That
Yeah.
seemed uncomfortable for me. At least me watching it, that seemed like it wasn't pleasant to do.
Oh, well, it was unpleasant as an actor. It was pleasant to do. I enjoyed doing something like that. As you know, as the sandal maker, it was unpleasant. But he needed to feed his family. He needed what the Ferengis were going to offer. I mean, honestly, I haven't watched it. I tend not to go back and watch my work
Okay.
after the fact, so I don't remember a lot of that. So, but I'm getting flashes of it coming into my mind. So.
Let me see if refreshes your memory at all. Exploitation begins at home.
I know it. Everybody, exploitation begins at home. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there you go. I actually want to ask you a little bit too about the Ferengi, and I know you're not like a big Trekkie or anything like that, so I don't know how much you're aware of
Right.
this, but like many times we've heard comparisons of the Ferengi to Jewish stereotypes. The fact that they're these like money-hungry, big-nose kind of characters. The very negative, horrible stereotypes. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or if you've heard that before.
I'd never heard that before, but I can see it. I I'm friends of friends, and I've known Armin Shimmerman peripherally just through friends. He worked at the Champlain Shakespeare Festival before I did, way back in the day in Burlington, Vermont, and so we have a lot of mutual friends. And in fact, when I think one of the shows that I was working, Armin was working on Deep Space, and he had me into his trailer for lunch one day. So we were just chatting about our mutual friends and so on. And so yes, I could see that comparison being made with the Jewish stereotype, but I don't think that certainly the sandal maker. I don't know that he was Jewish. He was a Nevish, but
And I should say too, we've had Armin on the show, and I actually asked him the same question, and he kind of felt that it wasn't necessarily that it is that specific stereotype. It's because he's done conventions around the world, and I'll tell you the story too, Alan. Since we're chatting about this, he's
okay.
gone to conventions around the world, and he'll have in Australia they'll ask him if it's based on this person, or he'll go to another country and they'll ask if it's based on this person, and he always kind of pointed out as it's always like the downtrodden person who's trying to like make a life for themselves. That's who they kind of
Right.
stereotype it for. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, that's where we felt it landed here in America, but it's always been kind of like that downtrodden person trying to claw their way up. And I always feel like maybe the Ferengi is more like the American dream. It's kind of like the immigrant story, and it was kind of caricaturized in some ways, but ultimately did grow into more of a three-dimensional kind of thing. But that's getting off the topic here. That's getting into some
Right.
Trekkie nerdy stuff here. But
That's all right.
yeah, let's talk about your final experience in
Okay.
Star Trek, and that would be one season later again of Voyager. That episode is Day of Honor, and you came back as a Catati alien named Loomis. So
Yeah.
again, I'm surprised you're telling me that makeup was not as horrible as what you did for Pommet.
No. It did because they're not blending anything. It was again, it was the eyes and the mouth. They have to glue that up, and the neck. That neck was a little more difficult, I think, to blend into my chest than say because Uranic was bundled up, I think. So, but no, it really, I mean, it was a lot of stuff. It's a big head, but no, it didn't really take much time at all. And I love working with those guys. They were a laugh riot. They really were a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm surprised too, 'cause we're talking about just getting the makeup on and off too, and that was like a giant helmet that you're wearing. That's a giant piece of mask there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
how sweaty and uncomfortable is that? I mean, did that matter to you at all?
It is sweaty, uncomfortable, and you try when you're off camera to get near some air to just blow on it to dry things off. And there are people around to towels and whatever you need to touch up the makeup. But again, and like I said earlier, I was having so much fun, and it's so great to be working, and sweating is the least of my worries. So.
I'm going to throw something at you that's, again, a little bit nerdy in that same vein of what I just
Okay.
mentioned moments ago about the Ferengi, but not quite. So, also on this podcast, just interviewed a guy named Michael Krawick, and he played the other Catati alien that's in this episode.
Okay.
And I don't believe you guys ever crossed paths, because I think he shot all the
No.
scenes solo, so I don't even know if you're aware, but, there's a Star Trek, I guess, compendium or some kind of companion book where it basically refers to them as if they're one character, even though they're two different characters.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you remember anything about this. I don't know if you remember an introduction or anything where they say, "Hi, I'm this character. I'm Loomis. I'm not the person you just saw." I don't know if do you remember anything
No,
like that? Okay.
nothing like that. No, I mean, what I remember from that episode was working with Jeri Ryan,
Yeah.
and she was terrific. It was her first big thing, I think, in Hollywood. And her dad was on the set. He was very excited to be there, supporting his daughter, and she was fun. She was great fun to work with, as well as the guys.
And I wanted to also compliment you as well on some of your acting in this one, especially your body language as this character Loomis. I feel like you really showed off some of the amazing emotional and physical toll this alien has been through. And you also did a lot of fantastic acting with your eyes through that makeup. Like you made it just feel like a very sympathetic character. Everything you were doing was really wonderful. So I don't know again how much you remember of that performance, but walk us through how you went through this character.
It's interesting, just because I haven't really revisited since back then, and now that we're talking about it. It does come back to me. That was very difficult for me, that scene where, but like all characters, you have to sympathize with them, whether they're perceived as a bad guy from outside or not. But you can't play a bad guy. Just to play this guy who's caught between a rock and a hard place, and he's doing what he has to do to survive. And it was very emotional. I had to rein it in a little bit. I found myself doing some things that were involuntary. It's like, okay, what was that? Where did that come from? But it was very emotional.
Loomis is really an interesting character to look at because he's not like pathetic at all, but
No,
he's just
no.
very much like, I'm trying to find the right word for it, but there's, sympathetic is the first thing that comes to mind. Just everything about him is very much like he wants to be helped. He needs the help. He needs to help his community out there. And everything about him is just screaming like, please help this poor, pitiful person.
Right. But he's willing to do whatever he has to do, even if it's not so cool.
Yeah.
So, little known fact, I've forgotten, what was the show that followed Deep Space Nine?
That would be Voyager.
Okay, then what was that one after Voyager?
Enterprise.
Enterprise. Which one was I think that was it. The holographic doctor.
The holographic doctor was Voyager.
Right. It was no. There was Robert Picardo.
Yeah, that's in Voyager.
It was Voyager.
Yep.
Wow, I thought it was another series. But anyhow, they were having a hard time casting that role, and I went in twice to the producers to read for the role. So I was a nervous wreck because I've never read for a series regular, and Jeri Taylor, bless her heart, had me in twice. And so I didn't get it, obviously, but it was a great experience.
Did you go back more than once for that role, or was it just kind of like one?
Yeah, I went in once, and then a period of time passed, and as I said, I think they were having difficulty finding the right person for that role because they weren't sure exactly. I think in the writing how he would be played. How do you play a hologram? Is he robotic? Is he just a human? And is it a mix of those things? So I think I worked with Junie on that a little bit, and And then I don't know, a month later, maybe I went in again, read for the producers. That's always daunting. You've got a room full of all these people who are deciding your fate, and they're deciding their fate as well. But it was fun. I always have. I try to have fun whatever I do.
And seeing how Robert Picardo looks and also what he did with the role, I can definitely see that being an Alan Altshuld role as well. It's interesting.
I had more hair in those days.
You did, yeah. So, Alan, what are you doing these days?
I'm getting back into. Did a play in December in Springfield, Missouri, with a dear friend of mine. It's a 2-person play. I haven't done a play in about 10 years, and there are only 2 people in this play. It's called Souvenir, about the life of Florence Foster Jenkins, the socialite singer, quote unquote. Meryl Streep played her in the film of the same name, Florence Foster Jenkins, and I played her accompanist. So there's 2 people. So the first time in my life I got to act, sing, and play the piano on stage. I was on stage nonstop for 90 minutes. I'm happy to say that I can still remember lots of lines. And so getting back to theater was really wonderful. It was a strange experience because of COVID. So the audience was not as full as we would have liked it because everybody had to be spaced. But it was a wonderful experience working with a dear friend of mine I've known for many years, who's an amazing actress and singer. She had to sing off key through the whole play, and then all of a sudden at the end, sing beautifully, perfectly, this classical music. And it was good to be back on the boards again. So I'd love to do more theater, and I'm doing lots of commercial auditions right now, and it's a numbers game. So the more I do, and I've had several this week, so I'm bound to hit it soon. And I would like to. I've flirted with the idea of rejoining the Star Trek universe, so that could happen. I'm just working on that. And a lot of my friends have said, "Well, why don't you do the conventions?"
Yeah.
And I've never gotten around to it. And I've talked to several. Well, talk to so and so, and they'll tell you what to do. And Armin was one of those people, and I never heard back from him. So I just said, okay, it wasn't meant to be. So it could still happen. And I talked to Walter about it. Walter does them all over the world.
Yeah.
And I didn't follow up on that. His wife did give me the name of the person who helps him out with that.
And I could tell you for sure folks would love to meet you, Alan. They'd love to hear your stories in person, and the fact that you haven't really done all these conventions either, that makes you a real hot commodity.
Right.
So you need to jump on that.
What? Okay, I will. You've inspired me. I will do that. I believe that there things come into your life at the perfect time, and you were at the perfect time because, as I said, I haven't done many interviews at all, and I was questioning whether I would do this one. And why not? So I'm getting bold in my old age.
Well, as I say at the end of every podcast, fortune favors the bold. So
yes,
there you go. So, Alan, I want to lightning round you real quick with a few last questions before we wrap things up today. So,
okay, all right.
You can think as much as you want about these, but you really can't because I'm just going to throw them right at you. So we're going to jump right in now. So, best day on a set and worst day on a set.
Oh gosh, the best day on a set was I did. It was a commercial. Are these supposed to be Star Trek?
It can be stage, it can be screen, it can be theater, wherever it was.
Goodness gracious! I only remember. I remember what was recent, but there was a moment when I was working with a director on what was it? Spectrum, before they were Spectrum. I can't remember what they were, but I did this character called Tech Teddy, and Tech Teddy was this nebbishy guy who was sent off to fix somebody's dish that wasn't working, and accidentally went off out into space. And years later, they come back to see Tech Teddy, got a full beard, and he's in this pod, wanting to go back home. And again, it's a commercial, but I so felt this, and I could feel myself getting emotional talking about it now. But the director was just feeding me these lines, and I would just say the lines. It was just like no one else was on set. And this is what an actor loves, just that back and forth, and it was very emotional. And it was I had people come up to me after we shot and said that they were in tears. This is from a commercial, and so it was very moving. And the worst day on a set, gosh, I know I'm supposed to come at this quickly. Oh gosh, I haven't had. Okay, I missed an entrance in a play in college. It was the day that I found out that I had been accepted into the actor's studio in the program, and all the 2 years before that had been geared toward getting into that studio, and only a handful of people did. And I found out that that evening I was doing a play, but I was distracted. It was very distracted. I was talking to somebody in the green room about getting into the studio and how wonderful that was, and the stage managers came running into the green room saying, "Altshuld, on stage now!" And I said, "Oh my God!" And I flew. I had to put on this mask. It was a half mask, me in masks. And I went out on stage. The poor actor, who's a wonderful actor, had to ad-lib and rhyme couplets. And he did, but for what probably seemed like, for me, it seemed like forever. And I got on stage and I said my lines. As we had these real candelabras up overhead, and the one over my head was dripping wax. So I was saying my lines, and the wax was dripping on my head, and I just had to say my line and get off stage. That was one of the worst experiences.
I got to admit, that's a pretty horrific story. Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
And I'm still in contact with that actor I left on stage, and he remembers it exactly as I do it.
I'm sure he's not going to forget that.
No.
So how about most challenging role that became the most rewarding for you?
That would have to be the play called Anina Variations, and it's an adaptation of the last scene from Chekhov's The Seagull, not that Chekhov.
Yeah.
And I played the writer, Treplab, throughout the play, and I had 3 different women playing Nina at different ages. It was a huge role, and it was very difficult, emotionally, physically, and I was persuaded to write the musical score for it as well. So that was nerve-wracking. In fact, I had to cut the music underscoring some of my scenes because it was so distracting to hear my music as this character. So mostly it underscored other people's monologues and whatnot. But it was ultimately one of the most rewarding experiences ever for me. And of course, I'm thinking of a million other things now to replace that one, but another interview.
You got to lock in one of them, right? It's the best one of the day, basically, right?
Right. That's what you get today.
So how about most valuable piece of advice that someone told you, whether it be about life or about acting, that you still hold on to and think about today?
My father used to say, apply yourself. You have to apply yourself. And as a kid, I didn't know what that meant. And as an adult, now I know. And so I hear my father's voice saying, just have to apply yourself. If you do, then things happen. When you do apply yourself, when you put your brain in the right place and you believe in what you do and what you want to do, it brings you joy, which is why I'm still an actor. There's nothing else that brings me joy like it does.
Great answer. Now, last thing for today, Alan, what is the best thing about being a part of the Star Trek universe?
That so many people are touched by it, and so many people follow it still after all these years. And on a low level, it's nice to still get residuals from all of these places around the world. But yeah, just the people, and I get lovely fan mail from all around the world. People are so thoughtful, and they write these long, and they send me photographs to either keep or to autograph and send back to them. And I try to do that as much as possible. So that it's the fans, I think.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for sharing all your stories today, not just about Star Trek, but about everything else you do, letting us get to know you a lot better. Because again, as you mentioned, and I've mentioned, I know you haven't done a lot of these, and I'm honestly very appreciative and grateful that you were willing to do this with me. I know you were a little trepidatious because it's a Star Trek show. Who knows what the hell I'm going to ask? But thank you for.
Well, thank you. It was much easier than I thought it would be. So, and you made that so.
And my goal is 2023 Alan Altshuld at the Star Trek Las Vegas mission event.
Okay, why not? I'll see if Walter's going. Let's see if we can go together.
Carpool, yeah, why not?
Thursday, we could do it. We'll fly pool.
Right, well, thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Matthew. Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's episode of Trek Untold. Until next time, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trek Untold, all one word. If you'd like to directly support this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter over on patreon.com/TrekUntold, which gives you access to some great perks that can't be beat. Or pick up some merchandise from our store, or use my Amazon shop link to check out all kinds of different Star Trek merchandise. Links for all these things are in the show notes. Shout out to Triple Fiction Productions for being a key sponsor of Trek Untold. Don't forget to check them out and all of the fine folks whose ads you've seen or heard on this podcast too. If you have any questions, feedback, or comments for the show, or would like to suggest a guest or discuss sponsorship options for any of these episodes in the future, send me a message at trekuntold@gmail.com. I hope to see you here again as we uncover more untold stories from Star Trek and beyond, and get to know even more amazing people who have contributed to this ever-expanding universe. Until next time, I'm Matthew Kaplowitz, and remember, fortune favors the bold.
Trek Untold is sponsored by TrekSphere.com, promoting fan-produced Star Trek content in all forms, is powered by the RageWorks podcasting network, and is affiliated with Nerd News Today.